Okay. Um, so hi, everyone. I'm Yiping and I'm in my second year of my PhD with John, and I'm gonna present our work, high resolution bathymetry reconstruction from Sidescan Sonar with deep neural network. Um, So the agenda would be first, I will discuss the specific research question and the motivation behind this. Why do we want to do bathymetry reconstruction with SciScan? And also I will talk about the prior work, which mostly is based on model-based approaches, and also our work, which is based on the data-driven approach, and then also the motivation behind this. And also what I'm doing right now is a continuation of our work. The research question is really how to extract 3D information from SciScan images. And one of the application is bathymetry reconstruction from SciScan. Um, um, well, now we need to talk about where on earth we need to do this with Sidescan because Multibeam is doing a pretty good job. But Sidescan does have some advantages over the multi-beam. The first would be wider coverage. So in theory, we could improve the efficiency to survey a certain area with Sidescan. And another Sidescan's advantages is that it has high range resolution in the cross-track direction, which means in theory, we can get a position map with finer details. And also, the Sidescan is small and cheap, and multi-beam is large and expensive. And now more and more people would like to go out to do a survey with AUVs instead of big survey ship, and talking about small AUVs like SAM, which does not have a very good multi-beam. So if we want to use SAM to map a certain area, we could really benefit from this research. However, the problem with SciScan is it does not have any cross-track array, so we don't know the angles and hence we don't know the depth. So sort of like um, camera images that the depth information is missing. The difference between SciScan and camera image is that um, in the SciScan image for like every pixel, we actually know exactly the range that is represent, and in usually in very high resolution millimeter level, but we just don't know the angle, and so we don't know depth, and that's not the case with camera images. But still, we can borrow some of the idea from estimating depth from camera images in this research, and to estimate the depth coordinates, and then we can resolve the 3D positions. Um, so ideally, in the end, the the application would be like this. If we have one waterfall image and like this, and we can estimate every depth for every pixel, and then we can calculate the XY coordinates, and then we would get a bathymetry like this. And of course, if we have like multiple waterfall um, images and from different lines, we can fuse them into a bathymetry map like in the end. And so the prior work to reconstruct bathymetry from SciScan is mostly model-based. And there are lots of effects that would influence the returned intensities in the SciScan images, including sediment characters like the grain size. What's the grain size? It's a boulder, it's sand, it's silt, it's clay, and also the surface scattering properties, and also the sound absorption and dispersion, and of course, due to different salinity, temperature, and pressure, the sound changes in different water layers. And then also we have to somehow model the sonar transducer beam pattern in order to um, in order to do this in a model-based approach. So basically, um, there have to be some assumptions. And then one very important assumption is the language model based on this Lambert's cosine law. So basically, it's saying that in the Sidescan images, the return intensity is um, um, is the intensity is hit at point P times the reflectivity at that point, and also the cosine of the incident angle. And of course, we have this normalization term, K. But uh, and in this paper here, they actually did bathymetry reconstruction based on this language model, and they optimize the beam pattern reflectivity and height map jointly with this EM algorithm. And in the end, they showed that they can reconstruct a bathymetry of the area like this. But the problem with their work is that they don't really have a ground truth to compare with, so it's really a qualitative evaluation on the approach. There isn't a quantitative analysis. And also another problem is their assumption. This language model is far from perfect, and some people actually wrote paper about so it should be cosine square law in at low grazing angles, and some other people writing papers about it should be cotangent law. So so this since this language model is not perfect, naturally we are thinking if we can use data-driven method and if we can get a better result there, because with data-driven method, we can actually learning from the data, leveraging the deep learning's power. But in terms of this specific bathymetry reconstruction from Sidescan, there aren't much of prior work doing this in data-driven approaches. But in my master thesis, we showed that the CNN, the convolutional neural networks can actually get pretty promising result with estimating depth from Sidescan images. So here is what I did in my master thesis. We try different architectures, ResNet and UNet, and also we try different models, discriminative model and generative model. And we show that given a window of Sidescan waterfall images and ground truth, this comes from the multi-beam. And we can train CNN to predict the depths for every pixels. And here we show like in different models, they are doing a relatively good job um, if if we just look at the images. And in the quantitative evaluation, we see that the best error we can get is mean absolute error around 25 centimeters. Um, and a very interesting observation is that we in different models we observe this common thing that the iris actually is drifting, it's getting larger and large. If you move away from the nadir, you move away from the sonar. In this UNet, it's more severe, this problem, and here is less, but still you get this problem. So this problem could make it very difficult to reconstruct the symmetry because the areas are drifting and they are pretty large, and you don't know like how much you should trust the neural network's predictions. So um, in our work, we actually proposed like several things to make it actually useful. The first thing we propose is we introduce sparse steps to reduce the drifting errors and to constrain the neural network. And another thing is we also propose a way to estimate the uncertainty at the same time. And we since we have the uncertainty estimation, so when we in the end fuse the bathymetry map, we actually have something as reference about like how confident we are about our predictions, and we can use that to improve our map. Um, so this sparse depth first. So this sparse depth from the side scans trajectories. So here the assumption is that we actually know the depths along this. We actually know the depth of the seafloor along these trajectories. Um, but to achieve that, of course, it needs fairly good navigation data, which we usually do. And if we can get the altitude from either altimeter or DVL or even bottom tracking algorithm, then we have a sparse depth of the seafloor before we are doing the construction. And if we associate every point on this trajectory to the Sidescan waterfall images, it would be something like that. So along these lines, we actually know the depth we are trying to estimate. So that acts like a constraint to the neural network to estimate the depth like between these lines. Um, so here is the training example and of the input of the training example. So along these lines, again, we know the depth here, and this we in later I will show that they actually provide a constraint to the neural network, and they work pretty good to reduce the errors. And another thing we do is we introduce a way to estimate the uncertainty of the prediction of the neural network. According to this paper, Deep Ensemble, they actually show that minimizing the negative log likelihood, which is actually a proper scoring rule, which means that you can use that in the loss function to get a pretty good uncertainty estimation. And so if we model the predicted depth following a Laplacian distribution, we will have a loss function minimizing the NLR like this. So here we have so our neural network would predict the depths. Here is like the mean of the predict depths, and here is the variance, and here is how you calculate the loss function. And this is the input and output of our neural network. Takes the Sidescan images and sparse depth as input, and out for every pixel, we output predicted depth and also the uncertainty, which is the variance associated to every pixel. And compared to the ground truth from the multi-beam, we can actually see that, for example, here, the errors are pretty large, and it reflects on this uncertainty estimation, because here we are more uncertain about these predictions. And if we look at like this, like vaguely, we can see that along these lines, which we have sparse steps provided, we actually have low uncertainty, which is high confidence, because we already know the answer we are trying to estimate. So it shows that the uncertainty estimation works pretty good. Here is an example of how sparse steps can affect prediction. Like this blue line is the ground truth depth for one pin of Sidescan, and then for some reason the sparse depth we provided is corrupt, like in this red point. It should be here, down here, but it could be from our altimeter readings are not that accurate, or we have some errors in the navigation data. Anyway, the sparse depth provided to the neural network is corrupt. And then we can see that the neural network is trying to predict sort of this depth contour, but around this sparse depth. And if we, on the right here, if we provide the accurate sparse depth, we can see the neural network can predict the depth contour like in the right place, not with this offset. And here is the result from from one of our data set, from our test data set, the bathymetry reconstruction from the Sidescan on here. And this is the bathymetry from multi-beam, which we use to generate training data and do the evaluation. We treat it as a ground truth. We can see that, and another thing is this test data is actually another area from the training data. So we train our neural network on the data from another place and test on this. So we want to see how the neural network generalize on this unseen data, and it looks like the generalization is pretty good. So we can see that from comparison between these two, the neural network can capture the like large scale bathymetry, and we can see that it's pretty accurate in large scale. And also here is the field confidence map, which comes from the uncertainty estimation field up in the end. And we can see that along this Sidescan trajectories, we actually have high confidence because as I said, we know the depth there, so we have high confidence, and we have low confidence at the boundaries because we don't have Sidescan trajectories here to reduce the drifting errors here. And here is an example showing that if we provided different amount of sparse steps, how the neural net work. So here we can see that if we use all of the sparse steps, if we use all the Sidescan trajectories to provide these sparse steps, we can get a really good result on mean absolute error. We can get it under 6 centimeters. But if we provide 30% of the Sidescan trajectories to provide sparse steps, we can still get a fairly good result of under 10 centimeters. But to be noted here, we don't randomly select this 30% sparse steps. We actually carefully design which Sidescan lines we should keep and which we could throw away. But still, it shows that if we are doing a survey and we carefully design the mission, we can actually improve the efficiency of surveying this area with Sidescan by a lot, and still get pretty good result. Here is an example showing that how uncertainty estimation helps. So on the top left, we do a bathymetric reconstruction without using the uncertainty at all, which is act like we didn't have the uncertainty estimation, which is simply averaging different different predictions from different views of the same place. And then we can see compared to this ground truth here, the bathymetry is pretty bad. But if we use this uncertainty estimation as a base in this data fusion step, we can see that it's not like perfect, but it's doing much better than the one without using uncertainty. So it shows that uncertainty estimation actually help, especially when you have large errors at that part. And what I'm doing now is trying to improve the result from the paper I just talked about, because really there is a better way to fuse map. Even though we have this uncertainty estimation to help to fuse the map, but still sometimes when the predictions at the same place differ from each other in different views, and when we fuse them, we actually lose some details in some degree. Example would be in our experiments, we've seen that the large rocks or the boulders actually showing up in the rocks, but not the small rocks. We kind of lose that details in the final map. But in this paper, they actually have special neural network called Siren, which you can use to um, parameterize differentiable signal representations. So basically what we want to do is that we use this kind of neural network to build differentiable mapping from the X and Y coordinates of the map to the Z coordinates of the bathymetric map. So since this neural network is differentiable, so we can actually calculate the gradients um, and if we can calculate the gradients, we can actually constrain the gradient directly. So we hope that since we can constrain the gradient directly, the rocks, not only the large ones, but small rocks can show up in our final map. And this is one of the things we are doing in terms of how to improve the bathymetry. And another thing is that we've been thinking about how to use Sidescan in the deep learning, like other than CNN, because with CNN, you kind of have this strong assumption that that's wrong because you kind of assume that you are looking at the camera images, but the problem is Sidescan image is very different from camera images. So actually, we are thinking about if we can find some other way that we don't need convolution operations. Um, and it turns out that during some research, we found out this transformer model, which proposed in this attention is all you need paper, might work pretty well because there they don't have a convolution operation, so it's less uh, assumption. It's really learning from the data, and also um, people have been using this transformer model in different areas in different type of data, and it's doing really good. One um, area that they nowadays the state of art, they are all using this transformer model is the machine translation, like Google Translate. They all use this, and it turns out it's working really good. And of course, there are people using this model to adapt it on the camera images, and it's working pretty well. So we think we could try this on the Sidescan images to learn the special patterns from Sidescan, and hopefully we can get a better result with transformer model and also the fusing map technique Siren I mentioned before. Um, so yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening.